Ah, Indiana Jones. Remember him? The great adventurer, archaeologist, professor, and womanizer. Played by Harrison Ford, Indy discovered the Ark of the Covenant, returned the Sankara Stone back to a village in India, freeing enslaved children, and found the Holy Grail, saving his father's life in the Last Crusade. Flash forward 30 years later, and Disney Lucasfilm has one last franchise screeching in for a crash landing. Let's talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Just a heads up, I will be spoiling this movie. You have been warned. Spoilers ahead. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a 2023 film directed by James Mangold, who directed films such as Logan and Ford v Ferrari. Every Indy movie has some sort of object him and the antagonists are hunting, aka a MacGuffin. This movie's MacGuffin is the Antikythera device, which is a real-life device from 2nd century BC, used to predict and track astrological anomalies like the sun and the planets. In the movie, this device was invented by Archimedes and is used to travel time. More on that later. We start the movie at the tail end of World War II. Indy infiltrated and got captured by Nazis.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
Him and the Nazis are going after the spear that pierced Christ's body. Indy is accompanied by Basil Shaw, played by Toby Jones. Since it's at the tail end of the war, Indy is younger, so they use the infamous de-aging CG on Harrison, and while it's better than in previous iterations, like Rogue One, it's still got an uncanny feel to it. Instead of PS3 graphics, now it has PS4 graphics. Also, he's got Harrison Ford's current voice, so he sounds like he's older than he looks. It threw me off a bit, but I kinda got used to it. All the Nazi antiquities are being loaded on a train. Indy gets on, and both he and the Nazis discover that the spear from earlier is fake. This disappoints the villain named Dr. Jürgen Voller, played by Mads Mikkelsen. I thought he gave a good performance. You can never go wrong with Mads as the villain. Back to the train sequence, Voller reveals to his Nazi allies he has one half of the Antikythera device. Indy comes in and takes the device from Voller while saving his friend. Indy is being chased by every Nazi on the train, while he has a one-on-one with Voller on the roof of the train. They tussle for the device when Voller is hit by a water tower hose. I know it's an Indiana Jones movie and some of the hits these characters take are silly, but how the hell did he survive that hit? Anyway, Indy and Basil jump off the train right before it's bombed and crashes. They have the dial and victory has been achieved. This whole 20 to 30 minute opening sequence I actually really enjoyed. Minus the weird voice and CG, and it being in the dark. There's a cool motorcycle chase and the train sequence was fun. A huge gripe I have on this movie is that most of the movie feels like it's in the dark. So when day scenes come in, it can be kind of jarring. Nothing is wrong with dark scenes, but it felt forced in this. Hollywood likes dark scenes because it's easier to hide bad CG. Seeing as this movie in some way, shape, or form has been reshot, ballooning its budget, I'm not surprised they took the easy way out with dark scenes hiding CG. After seeing young Indy in the day with the de-aging CGI, it's pretty clear the reason why most of the scene took place in the nighttime. Well, that's the end of the movie. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. No, it's not over. I wish it was. Because this is where everything spirals into a nosedive with no way of pulling out. Flash forward to 1969 and Indy is alone. His son, Henry Jones III, is dead. Died in the Vietnam War. Marion has filed for a divorce. He spends his days and nights alone and drinking. This is what I came to the cinema for. To watch my hero be utterly destroyed and deconstructed. This is par for the course for Disney Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy, seeing as they already destroyed Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia. It's time for Indy to get the Disney chopping block. Kathleen and the rest of Disney have a vendetta on destroying George's creation and elevating their new characters that sometimes feel like self-inserts. Also, I'm not saying George's vision is perfect. I suffered through Kingdom of the Crystal Skull before writing this review, and it's not good. But at least it respects the characters and their legacies instead of tearing them down. And it gives Indy a happy ending, much happier than the end of this film. There is nothing wrong with failure in a character. It's what makes the character more human and relatable. Indy fails plenty in the originals. He falls for a German spy, he gets captured plenty, but the difference between then and now is he won't give up. He won't cower in the corner begging for help. This doesn't feel like Indiana Jones. Let me mention something positive in the slew of negativity. John Williams' movie score is pretty good. It's not his best, but it's one of the few highlights in the film. And unfortunately, it is this legend's final film. Now let's talk about the biggest problem in this film. Helena Shaw, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who in the last Disney Lucasfilm outing played a sex robot. And I'm only kind of exaggerating. She is absolutely insufferable in this movie. And once she comes in, it's kind of her movie and Indy is her sidekick. She is the daughter of Indy's friend from earlier, Basil Shaw. Throughout the movie, Helena is constantly trying to backstab and one-up Indy. She's so unlikable, it's hard to root for this character throughout the film. I dare say she's a villain for part of this movie. They go out of their way to try to make us like her with magic tricks and a scene with an old lover that feels like it was written for Indy but was given to her instead. She also has a sidekick named Teddy that was thrown in and added nothing to the film. Let's compare a good female heroine like Marion Ravenwood from Raiders of the Lost Ark to Helena in this one. Marion is a badass. She holds her own in some fights, can handle a gun, and isn't in your face about being resourceful and smart. She just shows it. Remember, show don't tell, Hollywood? Hi, baby. She also knows her strengths and weaknesses. For example, in the tent with Belloc, she knows she can't outmuscle him or any guards, so she plays along with him, wears the dress he wants her to wear, and gets him drunk as to escape. She can hold her own, but in the end, she needs Indy and he needs her in a way. It's a partnership, a team effort, not one side bickering and belittling the other. Back on this dumpster fire, Indy and Voller are in a race to get the second half of the dial. There's an underwater sequence that made me think they should do a Fate of Atlantis movie like the video game or comic. Or better yet, leave Indy alone. The whole sequence is dark, and when eels start going crazy after they get what they need, it was next to impossible to tell what was going on, if the characters were getting bit or not. It made my head want to explode. There's another scene that seems it was written for Indy and given to Helena. They are captured after going underwater by the Nazis. She pretends to help them by reading a tablet that they need deciphering, and she's got a stick of dynamite in her pocket. She's just as clever and smart as Indy. She steals a cigarette that's lit, and tied up Indy cowardly lights it behind the Nazis' back, and they escape. They find Archimedes' tomb, as well as the second half of the dial, but Voller is there as well and takes the dial and completes it. With this, he will go back in time and right Hitler's wrongs and win the war for Germany. He shoots Indy near the heart and gets on the plane to go back in time, dragging Indy along. Helena sneaks on to the plane, and her sidekick Teddy steals another plane to follow them. Little does Voller know, but Indy discovers, the dial can't send you back to any point in time. It can only send you back to a specific point in time. That specific point is the Battle of Syracuse over 2,000 years ago. This sequence has some interesting stuff, like the Romans not understanding the plane, so they think it's a dragon. The plane gets taken down, but not before Helena saves Indy and gets the kill shot on Voller. That's right, Indy doesn't get to beat the villain, she does. They take a parachute as the plane crashes. Don't forget Indy has been doing all this action with a near-heart gunshot wound. Archimedes investigates the crash site and finds the dial and a watch on Voller, which he was buried with earlier in the film. Also, his tomb had a dragon with propellers, which was a neat touch. Teddy lands his plane. Convenient, it was not targeted by the Romans like the Nazi plane was. Indy gets to meet Archimedes as Archimedes gives him back the dial and the watch. Here we have the nail in the coffin for Indiana Jones's character. He begs Helena to let him stay in the past so he can die. He feels no connection with the present, so there's no other option. This is not what the character of Indiana Jones would do. Helena explains the danger of staying in the past, but don't you think Indiana Jones would know that too? He spent so much time studying this device. Wouldn't he know that's a bad idea? That he could change and rewrite history for the worst? No, of course not. She has to explain it to him and then knock him out to bring him back to the present. So out of touch, so out of character. Disney Lucasfilm at its finest. Back in 1969, Indiana is patched up with Helena and Teddy when Sala and Marion comes in with groceries. Guess the divorce is off now. I forgot to mention Sala earlier in the film. He wanted to be on the adventure with Indy but didn't go. I wish he did go instead of Helena. It would have made a more entertaining movie, even though they're both old. Indy and Marion have a nice moment where they recreate the "Where Does It Hurt" scene from Raiders. While nice, it did seem a little forced. This movie ends with Indy grabbing his hat for another adventure. Before I wrap up this diabolical disaster known as Dial of Destiny, I do need to take a moment to talk about the original ending of the movie, which was all but confirmed by John Williams.
So we have just about completed the film. We have maybe another ending to shoot and to record maybe in a couple of weeks.
Meaning Disney Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, and the director, James Mangold, lied about the ending not being reshot. Guess all those basement dwellers were correct, Mr. Mangold. The movie was going to end with Indy dying in the past, so Helena would have to do all the things that Indy did in the previous movies, essentially becoming Indiana Jones. She would get the idol and run from the boulder, find the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. This shows the true intentions of Disney Lucasfilm, that they had all the intention in the world of killing Indy and replacing him with a strong female lead. When the rumor got out, people were rightfully pissed, and perhaps it didn't test well with audiences. They reshot it, but the fact that this was their original idea makes me despise Disney Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy even more than I already did. How she has a job after numerous failures is beyond me. Overall, Disneyana Jones and the Dial of Disenfranchisement is an okay action-adventure film that I would have enjoyed more if it had nothing to do with Indiana Jones. But since they spend so much of the 2.5-hour runtime on degrading the legendary character, I cannot help but despise this film. There are only 3 Indiana Jones films: Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade. Anything else is fan fiction. 3 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my video, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps a ton. If you didn't like my video or disagree, thank you for listening. See you all next time here in the Junkyard.